the actions we've taken are very literally connected. The people I voted for and I've called are continuing to support and advance policies that will continue more of this, but I've also really gotten involved with physically making stuff happen.
Yeah, and I grew up in a very tight-knit community in Western North Carolina, and I sort of feel like all of my community organizing is in some ways trying to recreate that very tight-knit feeling of community, and I think that the more that we engage folks in their towns and their cities with each other, and the more that they're engaged with these processes, the better their lives are going to be, and the more connected, it's interesting. I was having a conversation with somebody recently about climate resilience in regards to, when there were those terrible heat waves in Chicago, and the communities that were better connected to each other had less deaths, because people were checking on each other, and people were saying, look, I've got air conditioning, you can come over to my place, or whatever like that. And I think that's maybe a side benefit of all of this, is that it brings the towns together, it brings the cities together, it brings the community together cohesively, which
and I think that's also often an overlooked benefit of moving to clean energy, is that solar and wind are more resilient in the face of extreme weather and the kind of impacts we know are coming, because you're just generating your energy right there, and you're not transmitting at long distances. You're not worried about fuel shortages or extreme weather that can shut down a power plant. And so I think that's a benefit too.
Yeah, and we were talking about this yesterday. We've been spending a lot of time together recently, the three of us, but we were talking about this, about sort of the connectedness of sort of the energy use and the energy production as a benefit. I mean, I think it really truly is a way to make our lives better. So does anybody want to sort of, you've got the handbook, which I feel like we should quickly cover before we're out of time. But so do you want to tell us a little bit about sort of how that helps walk people through the process? Because how do you start from scratch?
Right, so this is in a lot of ways basically identical to what the other materials that Carol showed earlier, but just put together in a package that makes it a little easier, exactly like you're saying, if you're starting from scratch.
You can print out the whole thing and
just look through it. So we sort of go through why clean energy is important, some of the sort of ideas that we've just shared just now, and then takes folks through this campaign, where really what we're trying to do is give folks as many options as possible for pushing for local clean energy and for pushing their towns closer to 100% renewable energy. So there's sort of an overview of the campaign. There's a sample resolution. So some folks are working on getting their cities and towns to pass resolutions setting a goal of 100% renewable energy. So there's a sample of that, and there's also a sort of step-by-step guide to how you could pass a resolution like that in your town or city.
And the idea too, I mentioned this earlier, but the idea is that any of these materials can be changed for your city or town,
absolutely,
and handed out at your town meeting.
So please make these your own, use them, take as much of the material as you want. Absolutely, we would love to see folks sort of customize these and put them to use. And so then there's also, in addition to the resolution, there's the checklist we talked about earlier for assessing your town's progress. There's a link to some of these fact sheets and a set of specific policy recommendations depending on the level of progress of your town or city. And then there's a step-by-step guide to what it looks like to bring climate and clean energy projects to a particular town or city. And I think this is something that we intend to keep adding to and keep modifying as we go along. So we're hoping that this will become more and more substantial over time.
And I think it might just be worth saying for a moment, because we're talking about this, movement towards 100% renewable energy. But just briefly, because people throw questions out there. How does it happen? What's the specific pathway? Is it possible? So I think we're going to assert that it's possible. Yes. And without diving into the sort of engineering specifics of it, we're kind of moving from a time where we've used these big power plants to produce energy when we need it most, and that's the times that are most are like the really hot summer days, really cold winter nights. So some of the ways we're balancing that out is like offshore wind during the winter and the cold evenings, solar, sunny days, summers. But we're also rolling out battery storage and starting to get that down from this industrial level to more localized applications. And one of the examples of how this is working in a municipal energy project is a pilot in the Sterling Municipal Light Plant area, so Sterling, Mass, town of Sterling, Mass, using battery storage. So whether you're in, whether you have that kind of utility where it's publicly owned, or you live in an investor-owned, such as National Grid or EverSource, there's really interventions you can make to go on the pathway towards 100% renewable.
Yeah.
And this is still, when we say 100% renewable, it's actually a whole wide set of resources that are, clean and healthy, but also bring our energy dollars home. So we're talking about weatherization, wind, solar, battery storage, anaerobic digestion, a number of different resources that work at different times of day, that have different advantages to them, but that can create the power we need, to keep the lights on, and also to reduce our carbon footprint or our greenhouse gas emissions.
Yeah. And to make our lives better and make our homes more comfortable. I mean, this is something, that I always think about with energy efficiency is it's that's a pretty direct life improvement, right? Because I spend a lot of time turning the thermostat down otherwise.
And dealing with drafty windows.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And my feet being always cold and no, let me have an energy efficient home and not have to worry about it so much. And that's so much more comfortable. So, I guess the only question that I feel like we should continue, or that we should answer before we're done, is who do we want to have using this? We've got this fabulous resource, and maybe we should just go around and say who's our sort of dream user? Who would we, or who all would we like to see utilizing the toolkit?
I really think anyone who is interested in pushing their town or city to take more leadership in clean energy and in fighting the climate crisis. So I think it works for folks who have a lot of experience and maybe can help us add to it and help us sort of think about what it needs to include.
And we're always looking for feedback.
Absolutely. And I think that it also works really nicely for folks who are brand new and who are just getting started. And I think it works for folks who are planning to lead a campaign. And it also works for folks who just want to be part of a campaign but want to have some of the context of kind of what's going on.
Yeah, so in many communities there might be a local sustainability group that might be interested in taking this on. Many are currently.
Energy committee.
Yeah, energy committee. If your church has has a green sanctuary or some other kind of green the church, green the temple, synagogue effort going on, and you're really thinking about how to expand it community wide, it might be one way of doing it is thinking about projects that you can do. And I think the biggest thing, other than kind of starting to evaluate where you're at, is really building out a team of people to work with if you don't have one already.
Find your team.
So in many places, it's also true that maybe people will get interested in fighting climate change and they don't have a built network established already. But that's okay, right? You can talk to your neighbors, you can talk to the people you see at the supermarket, again, your congregation, other parents at the school, other kids at the school.
I will also say, Indivisible is, I want to encourage any Indivisible groups to get in touch with us about this. So we are actually just about out of time. So thank you so much, Emily. Thank you so much, Joel. Thank you, everybody, for watching. And we will see you on the next installment of the MCAN Power Half Hour. Thanks.